Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to Sword and Shield podcast. I'm Colonel Rick Erredge, 960th Cyberspace Wing Commander, and today we have a very special guest. And I know I say that every week, but we have former Wing member,
Sir,
Chief Chris Howard. Welcome.
thank you, sir. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to come back over and chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. Obviously, it's really busy right now, and you're moving on to a new opportunity, and so appreciate you taking time to do this. And we kind of do kind of a wrap-up podcast and offer you any words of wisdom and just kind of talk through things. And I know it won't be the last time we see you either.
No, and don't worry, the wisdom piece will be really short, so we'll be good.
No, it's always bittersweet when when people work so hard in the wing and you see them get an opportunity and you move on. It's hard for us to say goodbye, but it's a great opportunity for you.
No, I appreciate that, sir. And I'd say sitting on the other side of the table, right, it's not that much easier either, right? You know, even when opportunity comes knocking, there's that decision point. And when you're looking at, okay, here's a place that I'm happy. Here's a place that I'm being successful. Here's a place that I'm making a difference. And I love the team and I love all these things that are going on and all of these movements that we're making. But what does that cost, right? Here's another opportunity to do something new, build a little bit different team, learn a different mission set. But what's that cost too? So, you know, the decision to move on is a hard balance. But when you look at the fact that, you know, it's part of the natural evolution, and if I stay here too long, then I start thinking about all the airmen that are behind us that are not coming up and not moving because we have a log jam. And that's always that hard piece is like, okay, as much as I want to be here and as much as I want to be part of this, what's that ripple effect for all of the airmen that we've been developing over this time? You know, because then they're going to have to go somewhere else, and then we have other vacuums.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece to talk about is that's leadership, right? Of understanding when it's time to go and get out of the way when people are ready to take on that next level, and whether or not there's, you know, somebody you've been grooming for an opportunity or whether that's somebody from the outside. It's an opportunity for both ways. And frankly, the day I start a new job is the day I dread having to lead again because it's really fun, like what we do every day. But I think that's what makes the military different and separates us from private industry is that people don't do the same job forever. And we expect our leaders to move on and take that experience to do something else and lead more airmen. Right.
And that's where we also quite often get wrapped in that conversation about being uncomfortable, right? If you stay comfortable, you know, we build complacencies. We do build some efficiencies, but those complacencies start to override those efficiencies. And that challenge of always making ourselves a little bit more uncomfortable, I think helps us grow and develop. And I think that's why, you know, industry does like sucking in leadership from the military. I think that's why you see so much evolution and some acceleration in that change, especially when other boxes are taken off the plate and when the handcuffs come off to let you really go forward. And that's one of the things that I really loved about the 960th was that because the mission was somewhat new, we were still growing and evolving, and the type of leadership that you provided and the type of leadership that our other leaders provided, it allowed us to take those handcuffs off, right? We were told, okay, there's no sacred cows, and it was meaningful, and you guys meant it. Here's an end goal. Here we want to get. Here's where we're headed. Now go. And then it was, you know, like a pinball.
Sometimes.
You know, just bouncing all over the place. Sometimes we scored. Sometimes we missed the flipper. But ultimately, we still progressed. We still put a lot of points on the board, and we still moved forward. And I think that if you look at all the different weapon systems, if you look at all the units over the last couple of years, we can actually show measurable growth in spite of this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really the important piece for me is going back to the people piece is that you don't really know what people are capable of until you put them in that position. And so many times throughout my career, do you see a void from whatever reason, somebody step in to fill it.
Right.
And I think that's what we really have to prepare people for, not necessarily preparing somebody to be the next Chris Howard. We don't need the next Chris Howard. We need Chris Howard to go be something else. We need the next group chief to lead how they lead. And we don't know what that's going to look like until they actually step into that role. To me, that's exciting. It's different. It's fresh. It's new ideas. As long as you build a culture of leadership and making smart decisions and doing the right things, I think you can plug just about anybody in this uniform into a role as long as they understand intent, set expectations clearly, and then let them go. Like, take the handcuffs off.
Right.
Like, I think that's a great analogy to empowering our airmen. And as we build this thing, administratively, operationally, like, they're growing at different speeds and paths, and seeing the growth has been really exciting. You've had a huge impact on that overall. And I know there's been a lot of frustrations over the time, but we've turned that energy into real movement and success.
No, agreed, sir. There's definitely been some moments where you're just beating your head on the door of the desk, why can't we make this movement? Why can't we get past this? But each moment provided a new thought, a new way of looking at it, and then just kind of going back to that, the bringing in different talent, bringing in different thoughts, bringing different experiences to the table. I think that's one of the legacies of the 960th has, especially right now, of being very inclusive there, right? And always looking for someone that has a different level of experience or different experiences, people that have gone a little bit outside of their comfort zone, individuals that have stepped outside of this mission so that they've gained a bigger picture. So strategically speaking, we're having a much better picture of what the Air Force and the joint environment looks like so that those decisions and that growth can happen.
Yeah, we made deliberate decisions. When I first got here, we talked about where do we want our gladiators to go? Like, Colonel Dart and I sat down and talked about where do we need influence? Where do people need to understand our business? And then let's mentor those folks. So we've been putting people in really great spots. Like, we're really proud of Zach Hammers, right? Exec to Chief White. Like, he went all the way to the top.
Right. Now that's one of those individuals that I definitely felt lucky to meet in my career and actually get to work with. I mean, when you talk about sharp individuals and potential growth and future leader, he's leading now, but I really would like to see where he steps in as a senior and as a chief down the road, because I honestly believe he's got that pathway.
Yeah, he did great things at the 42nd, and it was really hard to let him go because all the great work, even the reg half was like, please don't let him go. But like, he's ready for an opportunity, and he stepped right into it. So I think those are great successes I think you need to be proud of, because you had really good influence on making sure people understood what the plan was, pushed them, motivated them, and made sure that they knew that we had their back, that they're going to apply for opportunities. We want to continue to do that for people.
Yeah, I always pushed for him to take every opportunity, but I'll be honest, I was very selfish. I wanted to keep him as much as possible. I was advocating anywhere within the wing just because that talent was so great. And I thought that, looking at what experience that individual had and could bring, there was definitely other weapon systems that we could have grown into, but I'm completely excited for him and where he did go. That's an anomaly in itself.
Sure.
When we talk about cyber and even in Intel, because, Zach being Intel, very few opportunities for proven opportunities that have shown to be fruitful in our community. So when someone in our community is able to do that, that's awesome.
Yeah. And, he set an example, right? So now other people are like, hey, I can go do that too. Like, if I want to go do something, like, I'm going to shoot for it. And now there's a void.
Right.
And when what he's doing in the unit, now somebody's going to step in and have very, very good opportunity to do something great there.
Right. Yeah. And, we look at where that void is and we start looking across the wing. There's another individuals that are stepping up already that you can see in some of these other units. And I think that we'll be able to harness that void, still progress, and we'll see who the next, superstar is going to be.
Yeah. There's always somebody to step in, right? Even in professional sports. As people are on their way out, there's always rising superstars coming in. And same in our business as well.
But, using football, because we talked about football before, a recording. I think about Joe Montana years of the 49ers, right? Here's this great quarterback and leading the team here. And they're like, oh my gosh, he's gone. We're hosed. And then Steve Young comes in and does such a great job.
Yeah.
And you can talk about, other teams the same way.
So let's not talk about that other team. I know where you're going right there. You're trying to lead me into that other team that we're not going to talk about as much as I would like to after this past weekend. But when you talk about when you think about success,
okay,
what kind of things do you that you're really proud of from your time here at the wing? I knew on the spot here a little bit. So.
I knew this question was probably going to come up, and I've racked my brain for a couple of days of what that would look like. What does success look like? Without being, self-serving, I think that the podcast is one of those things that I'm definitely proud of, and this is why. When we look at the scope and impact of something as simple as this podcast, I've heard about our podcast at headquarters. I heard it in an interview for another job about how, hey, don't you do this podcast? All of these things. So the fact that we've been able to put some good information out and kind of start getting this medium seen a little bit differently, I see as a big success. It's not because of you and I doing the podcast. It's not the individual host. It's the fact that now we're normalizing a new technology in a way that people are like, that makes sense. When we started talking about this concept, it was, how do I get information available for consumption by an individual airman at the time and place they wanted? And we looked at this medium, we looked at video, we looked at a couple other items. And you spend a lot of time doing the research. So the fact that we were able to actually execute so many different podcasts, Sam, as the editor, winning an award for one of the episodes, and the fact that we've been able to hit a number of subjects, and the fact that we've made that impact, I think that itself is one of those legacies that will stand for a while. That alone is a big success, but some of the other movements that we've made as far as shoring up some of the mission sets, right, without getting into details of operational cyber, we were able to save one unit's mission in a number of conversations. We've been able to build some great TFI partnerships. Those are all successes, but ultimately what it's been, the biggest success is just the development and the team building that we've had here. I know that all of the leadership prior to us did a lot of good groundwork, built a good baseline, but I felt like in our tenure that we were able to take the culture to the next step, right? When we talk about those things, when Colonel Linian was still here, we talked about what culture looked like, the artifacts. We talked about, what the common goal looks like. We took the gladiators into a realm that we identify as gladiators a little bit more clearly. We use the podcast as part of those artifacts. Then we look at how we've built in our heritage room. We see the expansion of new buildings for the group, expansions of new buildings for the 50th. And then we talk about the newsletter, how that's expanded. All these things that make us a subculture within a subculture, I think has been successful. And the fact that we have so many individuals moving on and taking that with them, and the fact that the 960th is now known as a development place, as a place where I'm going to get solid talent, and not just, who are you? Where you come from? What do you guys do? It's, oh, you guys are the cyber guys. Oh, you guys, yeah, I know so-and-so. I've seen the all these good things come out from all these other individuals, and that we are actually being targeted for recruiting in other roles.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I agree with all that, and I will agree that I'll speak for myself. But okay. I'm definitely a face for radio. So I'm glad we did the podcast, and that we dabbled in video a little bit the holidays. It was interesting. It's certainly a completely different animal, and so I really enjoyed the podcast too. And talking about a void. Who's going to be the next co-host? And so we've been talking about that. And so you obviously left a huge void there, and I appreciate all the podcasts you did, and you did really well. And I think you enjoyed it. I mean, it certainly comes across that way.
I enjoyed. I was a little apprehensive, but I knew it was a comfort zone that I needed to push. So that's why I wanted to jump on it. I liked the idea of it. To the video piece, Sam's got video evidence of how uncomfortable I am in front of video. Hopefully she burned it.
You may see it again,
right,
in the future.
But I agree with the podcast, and it's really brought me a lot of joy and excitement. Now I'm got a couple of podcasts I really like, And there's a couple of podcasts I'm like, I'm not so happy with.
It's like anything else.
Right.
And then sometimes it's just the way you are that day. We come in and we're like, hey, we're going to do it. Right. And there's so many other things going on. And for us to persevere through the pandemic, I think is really good. And I get feedback too when I'm out and around talking to people about, hey, we really appreciate that. And we're going to continue it. Awesome. We want it to be a legacy, and we don't want it to be about, Rick and Chris. It needs to be about whoever's next.
Yes.
And we're going to continue to do that. So you're always welcome to come back, but you can't start your own over there at the new unit. So.
I'm not making you any promises. I don't think it'll ever compete. But when I talk about the use of that medium, I think that it is still useful. Not to kind of highlight where I'm working at now, but there's some similarities as far as GSUs and a void for that connection across the whole group. So I found that this is a really good template that other people are trying to mimic. Now, will they be successful or not? I don't know.
I think you should do it. I mean, I think that's part about leading and sharing, right? It's about, hey, this worked for us. Go ahead and try it, especially organizations that are so decentralized like we are.
Right.
I think it's a great opportunity to do that. And it just needs to start small like we did, right? And build your followership and then get feedback and, give the people what they want to hear. And I think we've done a pretty good job with topic-wise with doing that. So.
No, I agree. Yeah. And obviously I'll probably take a little bit different approach. What I liked about this is it was such a new idea that it left it way open, and we were able to hit a broad brush on it. I think that going forward in different units, it would be focused in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And to meet the need of that particular organization.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And we're going to continue to do this, and hopefully the next regime, post me wants to continue to do it as well. So.
I'm hopeful too. And I'll leave it with Sam as she's going to continue to carry the torch a little bit. I'll be a guest anytime you guys need me to be. Me, I like to geek out. She's heard me pontificate quite often, as much as possible. And we can get kind of goofy. And that's one of the joy things is like, we talked about, the brotherhood bond, just that whole bond that you have in the trenches. And this is one of those things that, is it really that difficult? No, but it builds a good bond because you're able to really let your guard down and have good conversations. And I always have goals to either make Sam laugh or cut up during the pre or post, sometimes in the middle of it.
That's okay too.
Right. So it's just the little things that make it extra fun.
Yeah, and it's helped me, and it's forced me at times to think through concepts and ideas. Right. And help us talk about those things that are important to us, and just further reinforces, I think, for me as a leader, about what we feel is important, and continue to articulate that in a way that makes sense for people and helps us refine those thought processes.
Right. And what I like to is it allowed us to get expectations with examples and details in a couple of our podcasts. The fact that we were able to highlight a number of our teams that were doing quite well. Some other subject matters that needed to be talked about at the time. We had some geek out sessions that went kind of well. I'll be honest with you, the one that I dislike the most right now is the blockchain. I don't think I was prepared enough for that one, so I feel like I tripped up.
That's hard. I'm trying to understand it myself.
Right. So I was a novice, and I try to put it together as best as possible for other novices. So hopefully it's not horrible. I'm sure looking at it down the future, like, man, this guy's a moron. But
that technology is so new. And I sat down with somebody here in the building, and I'm like, hey, just help me understand like basics, what it is. Right. And I think that's growth as a leader, right? Right. Taking an opportunity to talk about something that is curious and interesting that we may not know anything about it. It's kind of like our business. Yeah. Changing, evolving all the time, trying to understand what's next. We really sometimes, when we look at 20 years from now, like, man, that's crazy. Like, look how far we've come in such a short period of time. Right.
Not to really reveal ages or anything, but we've been doing this for a decade or two. I look back to, I remember still using microfiche for my tech orders and typing EPRs on a typewriter. As well as there was 1 to 2 computers in the whole shop that everybody just either rotated on, and predominantly it was a CAMS terminal with doing
CAMS,
doing maintenance PMI documentation and everything, to today where everybody has an expectation that they're going to have their own computer. Email is the predominantly used.
Have multiple devices, right? People are working off a phone, a computer, a tablet.
I remember a clipboard was the read file,
Yep.
right? And it was posted up right next to the break table, and the expectation was you're going to read it, and you could be quizzed
Every day. Yep.
On that read file. And actually, when we did boards for quarter awards, monthly awards, there was a possibility that something in that read file was going to come up as
Question. Yeah. When I joined, I remember we had each section had a secretary, and they were the one that had the computer.
Yeah.
They had typewriter and computer, and EPRs, OPRs were done on typewriters still. Like, we didn't have email. Like when I joined the military, to talk to people now, they're like my kids, well, my kids, they're like, email's old. I'm like, dude, like, I remember pre-email.
Yes.
Like, we actually had to write things down and had meetings that were focused and meaningful.
Or what the CC means in an email.
Right.
I know what that means. Carbon copy.
Yep.
And I remember using carbon paper on a leave form. So you had to press hard on the top one, and hopefully you didn't puncture, right? To get all the way to the third. So when we talk about part 2, part 3, the reason it's part 2 and part 3 because it used to be a stack of paper 3 deep with 2 pieces of carbon paper in between.
It's funny.
You were using carbon paper.
Yep, as much as you could.
Yes.
Yeah, and your hands would get all.
Oh yeah, it looked like you just been processed for a crime. Right? Like you had your fingerprints everywhere. So I think when we look back at even just the small time in the wing, the time that we've been together, it seems like it's went by like that. It always does.
Goes by so fast, but it's been almost 3 years.
Yes, sir.
This fall for 2.5 years.
Yeah, I've been in the wing for a little over 3. I was at the wing just over 3 years total between my time at the 426 and then up here at the group and then working with the wing. Going back to that comfort piece and kind of tying that back a little bit. This is the community that I was born into as far as the Air Force, right? So being an old SATCOMer, which actually was wideband SATCOM at the time, which was just a new merger from just being separate wideband bits and SATCOM being separate and put us all together. Like Colonel Estlin was one of the first officers I met in my career. And now that I worked for him at the group,
it's funny how that happens.
It was interesting, right? And then you look back and then all the different people that you met and the different assignments that bring you back and forth across that spectrum. Because we met on REGAF, active duty time, in Germany, and then ended up working.
Went your own ways, and then ended up working your way back to the same spot. So
yes, sir.
That's awesome. Remember the first time I met Chris, and so I was at headquarters, came down, and was spent some time at 426 doing like an orientation. And you were brand new. I think you said like first week or something.
That was my first day.
First day.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't tell.
That's good.
So very professional. Had it all put together. And like, man, this unit's got it figured out. Like, this is awesome. And my mind was blown. I had no idea what you guys were talking about.
Gotcha.
And then to end up here working with you again, just a short time later is pretty awesome.
Yes, sir. It was definitely unique. The scary factor is my stomach was churning the whole way. Right? I was scared poopless at that point, because I was a brand new chief. I was in a unit that was a little different because I'd been spent a decade in space, coming back to
a lot different
to common cyber, and then we were talking about some touchy subjects, right? Coming into a unit that had a lot of things that needed to be adjusted at the time, and
there's a lot of emotion and it was. I look back at it now and say it was fun and interesting, but I hear you. We were stressed about it too.
Yes, sir. It goes back to when we talk about those goals and things that we were able to change. Those conversations then led to decisions that when we worked together here, that helped everything align and still bring some of that corporate knowledge together so that we were successful. And I think that we were able to make some really good inroads.
Yeah, it never happens as fast as everybody wants, but we do have a plan, and we usually get to it, and it's about taking care of people.
Sure.
So I think we'll end it there. I'll leave you the last word like we do before, but thanks again for everything you've done for us. I know it won't be the last time. We expect you back in the wing in the future. I hope there's an opportunity for you in the future to, continue to lead, specifically, come back to this organization. So thanks for everything.
No, I appreciate that, sir. And I appreciate your leadership and the trust that you gave me for all of, and all the leeway, right, for us to do what we needed to do to be successful. The fact that more often than not, it was, here's the goal, go after it. And let us just do it. Kept us, of course, moral, ethical, and legal. But here, this is what we need to get after. And the fact that you gave us plenty of space to think outside the box and really get after the problem set instead of getting really boxed in or stuck in a hard lane. So I appreciate that, sir. I appreciate the friendship too, right? So that's one of the things that when we talk about leadership teams is there's only a few people on the leadership team. There comes a trust piece, and then there's friendship that gets built with that. So without it being outside the realm of normal, but just the work relationship and the friendship that comes with that work relationship. So thank you for that. To the gladiators out there, right? This place is home. It has been home for years, even before I was here, because of the nature of the business. But keep on doing all the great work. There's a lot of good things that all of our gladiators out there are doing. And there's days where, you're going to beat your head on the desk or on the computer screen. Just realize that in that frustration can come ingenuity and also come inspiration for how to improve that. If you can harness that more often than not and not get mirrored down in the frustration, the success will be exponential after that. It's those moments of frustration, those hard times that helps, kind of harden us and, build us into a stronger individual, which also gives us the experience and the knowledge to be successful later on. So in those moments of frustration, I'll give you words of advice that I got when I was a young airman, frustrated and thinking about leaving the service. Master Sergeant Palamas was his name. And he says, Chris, always look at this. You're frustrated in the moment. There's going to be change coming in the next 2 to 3 years. Don't let something today affect where that future could be. So take a deep breath, take it into perspective, and move on. And I give that to all the gladiators out there. And I want to tell all the gladiators out there, thank you for all the hard work you did. I wouldn't have been successful without your success. I wouldn't have been able to make the inroads that I made at the group if it wasn't for the individual units being successful in their mission sets. It's the vignettes that they provided us that allowed us to break down those barriers. It's the products that they produced, the effects that they produced that allowed us to be successful as a group and wing. It's not the individuals up here necessarily doing it. It's how do we harness your good works to work on your behalf to make all these good things happen. So when we talk about these successes at this level, it's not based on what individuals did, but what you all did to make that available for us to use to get that success. So thank you. And then I always like to say thank you for your sacrifice. Your sacrifice makes my family sleep safely at night. And I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And if I can, one last time, just tell all the gladiators out there, remember to stab your enemies in the face through cyberspace.
Until next time.